Our next reader is Glenn Schiffman. Glenn is a writer, storyteller, and teacher who grew up in upstate New York near the Cattaraugus Seneca Indian Reservation, where his dad was chaplain at the Indian School. Glenn lives in Burbank. He writes and teaches about American Indian lore and cosmology, tells stories at equinox and solstice in public ceremonies held at the Wright Ranch, an environmental education center in Malibu, and has taught American Indian cosmology at Ventura City College, Unity Church in Pasadena, and at the LA Learning Annex. When he's not writing, teaching, hosting a sweat lodge, I threw that in, or teaching or leading a men's group, Glenn volunteers at Homeboys Industries, where he teaches American Indian cosmology and conduct ceremonies to at-risk youth. Glenn was last year a finalist in Hampton Roads Press's Top 10 Spiritual Authors. That was last year. Congratulations. That was awesome. What I love about Glenn is that he is our wise elder. And I say that with the utmost respect. I'm amazed at what you write, Glenn. I don't think you're reading your poetry tonight. He's reading from his memoir, but he's also a wonderful poet. Please welcome Glenn Schiffman.
Well, I figured I'd wait till this moment to tell you that I left my material at home, but
You're kidding, right?
Yeah, I'm kidding. Relax. Yeah, this is from a memoir. The entire memoir starts with a prompt, "The Clay of My Childhood," but this one does not start with a prompt. For a little context, the character, the first part of the memoir is about childhood, first 12 years, when this young man named Hunter is raised on an Indian reservation, kind of as an orphan, and he's taught by he experiences a number of magical experiences and is taught by two elders from that reservation. And then he's yanked from that situation and screws around for the next 35 years of his life. And then this is the bit, this is the chapter, the first 5 pages of the chapter, where he gets kicked back onto his path, his red road path. So for context, excuse me, I met her in a frosty freeze in Tucumcari. Her name was Pa'echecha, but most people call her Peach. She was 12 years old, Pueblo Indian, and a runaway from a Mormon rancher. I was on a dream run, Norfolk to L.A. Good weather, no time limit. I ran as much as I could on 2 lanes, through small towns, even took old West Virginia and Kentucky mountain roads, with their postcard scenes around every turn. I had the rig for that. I drove a cab over Peterbilt, no long nose of an engine out in front, just the flat screen windows that unfolded the vistas in front of me. A 4-headed dragon with snaking tongues and gleaming eyes was painted on the front of my tractor. One head was under the driver's window, one under the rider's window, the other 2 beside each headlight, and all connected to a scaly green neck in the middle. On uneven roads, those dragon heads danced like hunting thunderbirds. On my 40-foot air ride trailer, my company name, Scheherazade, italicized by the wind, hinted mysterious cargo and a promise of tomorrow. Trade show division in letters half as big were printed under my company name. On the lower corner of the left rear trailer door, incandescent in red running lights, a bumper sticker read, "If you can't see me in my mirrors, I can't see you." 3 days out of Norfolk, Scheherazade and I were cruising US 5056 across Kansas, having not driven that route before in all the 500,000 miles we had logged. We cleaved one after another 1,000-acre Kansas farms with 10-foot-high stalks of August corn. I couldn't stop singing, "Oh, what a beautiful morning." In Dodge City, US 56 splits off from 50 and diagonal southwest from an intersection where a bank sign flashed 101 degrees at 11:59 a.m. No longer morning, I stopped singing and turned on the local AM station. If there was a low-pressure system on the heels of the hot air, I'd be driving into severe weather. The local news was sponsored by the NRA. The newscaster ran a gamut of hog futures, crop reports, train schedules, police logs, and Little League games. He finally mentioned that possible thunderstorms south of town shouldn't affect the Strawberry Social on the lawn at First Baptist. Highway 56 out of town was lined with curio shops and gun shops and single-story motels. Each motel implied that Wyatt Earp or Doc Holliday somehow had slept there. I turned off the radio as I passed the original Boot Hill, treeless, its graves baked belly up in the oven air. I couldn't get out of Dodge fast enough. Scheherazade and I followed the slewing sun for 2 more hours, through southwest Kansas, across a dusty snip of the Oklahoma Panhandle, and into New Mexico. In the town of Clayton, population 500 and some, we turned south on New Mexico Highway 402. Finally, we sailed in what had called me to take this route, the sea-green, sweeping freedom of the Kiowa National Grasslands. For 50 miles I marveled at the shoulder-high prairie grass and envisioned the tens of thousands of bison that once roamed there. In those 50 miles there were no vehicles and no buildings. Twice, though, I saw an eagle sitting on a BLM fence post looking right at me. After the second eagle, I pulled to a stop and shut down Scheherazade's systems. Out of the truck, enjoying the heat and the clean air, I found a box of Cheerios in the passenger side pocket and dumped the contents over the fence. Feed the rodents, I figured. I paused then and inhaled the humid perfumes of the grasslands and felt the buzz of a billion insects in my eyes and the whisk of the wind through my long hair. I took off my T-shirt, touched my skin to the sun, and felt him butter my back and neck. I chewed stalks of sweet hay pulled from their sheaves. I stood there until I heard the underlying silence in all the sounds of that place. And then, ever so faintly, I heard a whistle, an eagle's whistle, in the clouds. Yes, there were clouds gathering in the west. They were billowing, towering brothers of thunder. Their looming presence cooled the air. Their dark brows cast furrowed shadows across the waving grasses. I stood there at that fence line until I felt the first lush raindrops. Eyes closed, I licked at the drops, until a gust of cold wind shook me. Eyes open, there was no mistaking the dark vertical lines, now streaming down from the flat bottom of an approaching thunder. He was moving fast, bent at the waist like a sprinter, his barrage only minutes away. Rain is one thing, but clouds that dark and driven can bring big hail and high wind. Back in the truck, I gunned south. Wind gusts rocked my rig, but I managed to clip the storm's fringe, and in due course sinuate into the Camber mesas that channel the Pecos River through the Amarillo Plateau. Gliding again at 1900 RPMs, I sang an eagle's song, "Take It to the Limit," one more time. Until unavoidably, Route 402 joined US 54 and tumbled into the north end of Tucumcari, the tough end of town, full of junkyards and body shops with leaking oil drums and pappy, skunky asphalt. Swankweed somehow survived in the gravel of the drainage ditches. Here and there a thirsty pepper tree shaded the south side of a tin-roof shanty. In a lone corral an old mule leaned into the heat, one foreleg just off the ground, sullen against the flies, drinking from her eyes. The last time I actually drove through Tucumcari, and that didn't just blow by on the interstate, was in 1965. I stopped that time at the Frosty Freeze. And as I walked up to the window, I thought that the woman, stepping away from the counter, panther black hair, lioness brown eyes, wearing a creamy western shirt unbuttoned to the swell, was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. Just before she got into her Jeep pickup, she paused and looked at me. Our eyes met, and I felt magma rise in me until it made my ears burn. Then she soothed into the Jeep, handed a cone to a little girl in a car seat, and ignition churned the engine. The radio shouted out Patsy Cline, "I fall to pieces," as she drove off, her tires spewing cinders before she gained the highway. Too quickly her land of enchantment 474 EZL license plates disappeared westbound. I found the Frosties in the same place it was 9 years earlier. This time there was no Jeep pickup, no tawny Catwoman. Did I have expectations? No. Was I hoping? Yes. I parked Scheherazade so I could see the driver's door, which I left unlocked. It was still stifling hot, and I wanted to leave the key in the ignition, and the engine and the AC running. I asked for a root beer float, but Frosty didn't have root beer. Someone had forgotten to do something, so I asked the kid for a lemonade and vanilla in a cup. Instead, the kid brought a cone and iced tea. I was there at the window a while, my back to the truck, helping a teenage boy with sugar pimples, topped with a paper hat, get my order straight. When I opened the tractor door, balancing the lemonade and ice cream, I saw her. She was crouched down in front of the passenger seat, keeping her head below the level of the window. She wore a long, plain white cotton dress and clodhopper shoes. She was young, but not a child nor a teen. And she had astonishing tiger stone eyes. I set the ice cream and lemonade down on the floor of the truck, pushed the cup of vanilla toward the cold air vent, and glanced back at her. She hadn't moved, hadn't even blinked. "Can I help you?" I said. "The dragons," she said. "I saw them in a dream. Please, take me home."